Hey everyone, good afternoon or good morning if you're still in a time zone that it's morning. Thanks for joining. Appreciate you being here. I'm Derek Hannum from ReposiTrak, and this is our webinar focused on suppliers. Those of you who may have been on some webinars with us in the past know that a lot of our focus really for the past year and a half has been on helping retailers and wholesalers understand traceability requirements for them. But now what we're realizing is that as suppliers, you're starting to get a lot of those requests about traceability and the new requirements for traceability from some of your suppliers. And many of you have questions about it and you're trying to figure out how to deal with it, frankly. And we want to help. We want to help you educate you and help you understand why you might be getting different types of traceability requests from different customers and how to deal with those. Some of you may have thought, I don't have a product on the FDA's food traceability list, so I don't have to do traceability at all. Well, now you're getting traceability requirements and you may wonder why that is as well. So this webinar is really just about trying to answer those questions, as many of them as possible. We've anticipated some of them, so I've got a few slides to walk through, but honestly, I think we'll probably get through the slides in about 30 or 35 minutes. And there'll be plenty of time at the end for questions. We've allotted the whole hour. If you're willing to stay with me, I'll answer every question that gets asked until we run out of time. And if there are more questions after that, we typically answer those and then send those out to everybody who attended the webinar in an email. Just a few housekeeping details. If you have colleagues that registered for this and couldn't attend it, they'll get the recording. Everybody gets the recording who registers for a ReposiTrak webinar. All of our webinars get put onto the repositrak.com website in our resources section under webinar archives, so you can go back and pick it up there. And if you do want to submit questions at the end, we've got everybody muted, but you can submit your questions actually during the course of the webinar through the question pane. And Mason, my colleague, is running the webinar behind the scenes today, and Mason will accumulate all those, and at the end, he'll read me the questions and we'll go through them. So just in terms of what the slide flow looks like today, introduction to ReposiTrak for those of you who may not be very familiar with us as a company and where we fit in the traceability picture. And then we're going to dig into why traceability now, what your customers are asking for, what kind of data they need, and then how you can get ready, how you can meet their requirements today, anticipate the requirements of other customers, and really position your company to use traceability to your company's advantage instead of having it put you into a situation where you feel like you've got new work or new requirements. You can flip it and you can turn it on its head and make it into a business advantage, which we would encourage you to do. And then how do you deal with or anticipate traceability with all your customers? Because certainly if you've got products on the food traceability list, in the short run, you're going to do traceability with all of your retail wholesaler customers. And even if you don't have a product that's on the food traceability list, eventually you'll probably end up doing traceability with everybody, because in our view, traceability is the way the industry is headed. It's already moving in that direction and will continue to do so. And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. I'm going to actually go off the camera because being on camera, I think, tends to mess with my Wi-Fi a little bit, and I don't want my Wi-Fi to freeze up. I'll come back on camera during the Q&A to answer questions, but I'm going to go ahead and go off camera now, and you'll just see slides. Okay, so who is ReposiTrak, right? We are a supply chain data management company that's been working in the food supply chain for more than 25 years. Many of you, I saw the registration list before the webinar today, and many of you know us already, and I recognize some of the names actually on the registration list as companies who are connected to us for one reason or another today. Over 30,000 supplier companies are connected to ReposiTrak to share data or share documents or do something else that we do, like scan-based trading in the supply chain. We're a publicly traded company, so if you did want to consider doing business with us, sometimes management says, who are these people? Can we trust them? Do we know they're going to be around? Are they well financed? All of that's out in the open and public because we're traded on the New York Stock Exchange. You can go onto our website, look at our investor information, and see what kind of company we are in terms of our financial strength. And we have a very seasoned group of executive leaderships, a lot of people with gray hair like me, who have been in the supply chain for a very long time. Data management is the core of what we do. So nearly everything that we do in the supply chain is about connecting trading partners for a business outcome. Traceability is just one of those things. It happens to be the fastest growing part of our business today. And it's because we have more than 1,000 seafood companies, 1,200 dairies, 3,000 produce companies, those companies that are impacted by the new FDA requirements for traceability. We have many of them already connected to the platform today. But we also do big volumes of data crunching every day. We're a big data company. We take data sets from suppliers and do things with it for retailers, and things like generate, invoices for suppliers, track store inventories, place orders for suppliers, lots of different things. Again, it's almost always a function of working with either suppliers and their customers who are also suppliers, or suppliers and wholesalers and retailers. That's where we fit in the supply chain. This is just a very brief cross section of the types of companies that we serve today, that we're proud to serve. And it includes obviously a lot of leading names in retail, wholesaler, and suppliers, but frankly, a lot of small family-owned companies. We're doing a lot of traceability today and helping very small companies deal with the new traceability requirements and meet them where they are from a technology perspective. So that's ReposiTrak. So let's talk traceability now, and what's happening, what's going on in the industry, what kind of questions you might be getting, and so forth. And how do you deal with it? How do you deal with traceability for every shipment? So today, who's asking for traceability? Well, that list is growing, right? Major retailers and wholesalers, they've already started. Some of them are focused just on the food traceability list or the FSMA 204 section of products, but many are moving beyond that. Some majors like Kroger and Walmart are tracing all food. ReposiTrak is working with some companies that are tracing all food. Many of our customers are actually, retailers and wholesalers are moving beyond the food traceability list in selected ways. Maybe they're tracing all produce, maybe they're tracing all cheese instead of just soft cheeses, and taking that type of an approach because it's operationally easier to do it that way. And we'll talk about more of what customer requirements look like for traceability across different customer sets. Consumers are asking for traceability, right? You all know this. You know consumers have an ever-growing interest in knowing about the products that they buy in the stores. They want to understand how they're sourced, where they're sourced, how they were handled in the supply chain. Many of you are probably FSQA professionals, so this is really important to you, but it's important to consumers. Consumers want transparent, safe supply chains that frankly they can trust. And all of the recalls and actions that we've had in the last really 18 months has served to erode some of that consumer confidence. Traceability can help restore some of that consumer confidence. And then of course, regulators, right? The FDA has instituted FSMA 204. We know the enforcement date is just about a year away, just a little more than a year away. But the truth is that your customers, if you ship to retailers and wholesalers, they need you to cooperate with their traceability requirements now, because the January 20th, 2026 deadline impacts them not only for the products that you ship to them and their distribution centers, but all the way down to the stores. And many of them have to get their stores ready for traceability, and that's a lot of work too. Wholesalers have many thousands, hundreds and thousands of independent customers. Grocery stores, all the restaurants need to come into compliance. So there's an enormous amount of work to get done in the next year. So when you see the traceability requirements coming in from customers, and the customers are saying, I need you to do it now, and you say, well, the deadline's not until January of 2026, what you need to understand is that's the deadline for the entire supply chain to be in compliance, right? That's not for every individual company to be in compliance with every individual customer. Your customers need you to move faster. You need to get signed up for their traceability programs and cooperate with them, because again, they have their distribution centers to sort out, and there's a lot of work there. They have to make sure that their stores are in compliance because they have to do record keeping for the stores. And most of them haven't started on that yet. So they really do need their supplier base to cooperate. So traceability is now, it's not later, it's really now. In our world, we have the ReposiTrak Traceability Network. Many of you who are on the phone today or on the webinar have customers who are already requiring you to use ReposiTrak in the ReposiTrak Traceability Network, and you can see the names of those companies here. But many of you also serve, as I mentioned, Walmart, Kroger, Target, McLean, Cisco, these companies, US Foods, they have announced their requirements for food traceability, not necessarily through ReposiTrak, but their requirements are out there and public. So if you supply these companies, or you would like to, right? They're on your list of prospects. You're going to have to be able to do traceability the way that they want you to do it, right? You're going to have to conform to their traceability program. They're going to dictate to you how they want traceability done. And you're going to see that pattern happening more and more in the coming months, and it could go really fast, right? Because everybody knows that there's the deadline now. So our expectation is coming out of this holiday period, it's going to be frankly quite hectic with traceability as companies, start to activate their programs in 2025. So again, the best advice we could give you is get started now. Here's the big challenge for you is that the requirements aren't all the same. The FSMA 204 traceability requirements are the same, but your customers are going beyond those requirements in many cases. And the challenge for suppliers is, how do I deal with it? I have to share certain data with certain customers, but other customers want different data. They want it in a different way. They want me to use a different communication technique for that. How do I, as a supplier, deal with all of that? If you have 50 suppliers, or 50 customers rather, 100 more, how will you do that? How will you deal with all of the different ways that you may be asked to share traceability data, all the different data sets and key data elements that you may need to share? Those are all considerations for you as a supplier. And so you could end up maybe feeling like this, and I'm talking to suppliers really on a daily basis, and I hear some of these concerns that I'm getting requested to connect to a portal like ReposiTrak, a third-party portal, a customer portal. Somebody over here is using the blockchain. I've got customers that want me to do EDI. I don't know how to do EDI. I don't have those systems in place. And they want, 20 data elements, where with FSMA, the FDA only wants, 12 or so. So what's it really look like, and how do I deal with all of it? And this is the challenge. So what I've tried to do is break down, and this is very simplistic, I'll acknowledge that, but I've tried to break down by supplier type, and I hope that you fit into one of these supplier types, the different traceability concerns that you likely are already seeing or soon will, the requirements from your customers. And I know on the call today, on the webinar, we have a great cross-section of different types of companies. I saw eggs, I saw candy, I saw lots of produce, seafood, bakeries, you name it, packaged goods. I saw lots of different companies that I can just tell from the names of your companies what business you're in, and we know some of you already through our relationships on the compliance management solution. So I've tried to create, again, something here that will address you where you are. And so I'm lumping all the harvesters together in one group, right? So it's a broad group, but it's produce, it's seafood, it could be protein, right? It could be the other things that you're not manufacturing the product, but you're growing it, you're harvesting it. And for FSMA, you've got specific key data element requirements that frankly are driven by the FDA and not your customers, related to that harvesting activity, right? And on the agriculture side, it could be packing, initial packing and cooling. And on the aquaculture side, it might be you're the first land-based receiver and you generate the lot codes, and therefore you've got different key data elements that you have to track there. But you all have shipping key data elements, and you all have customers, right? And those customers could be processors, they could be manufacturers, or you may be sending a consumer product to a wholesaler or a retailer. If you're shipping consumer products and you're shipping to these large retailers, don't be surprised. If you don't have a product that's on the food traceability list, don't be surprised if you get requested by your customers to do traceability. So let's say you ship potatoes. Potatoes aren't on the FDA's food traceability list. You will still get a requirement from a customer to do traceability with potatoes, because they're tracing all food. So the large retailers, as I mentioned, are moving to trace all food, and it's only natural to expect that the other chains will follow suit. And if the chains do that, the smaller independents will do it eventually too. And the reason for that is, number one, it's very operationally challenging, frankly, to do a subset of products that are coming through a distribution center and coming into a store. So operationally, it's hard to do just the food traceability list. But beyond that, there are marketing advantages to say you trace every product that comes into the store. And we believe that every retailer, and certainly wholesalers that supply those retailers, will want to leverage those and optimize their food safety programs by extending traceability. If you ship to a wholesaler and that wholesaler ships to a retailer that traces all food, and you have a product that's not on the food traceability list, your wholesaler is going to ask you to do traceability because they'll need data from you to share it downstream with the customer, the ultimate customer. And that may surprise you, but there's data that your wholesaler or distributor customer may not have. So again, if you're shipping onions or something, again, not on the food traceability list, right? But your distributor wholesaler may say, I still need, country of origin and some other information related to your product because my customer, the retailer, requires that of me, and I don't know that unless you tell me. So lots of different kinds of challenges for harvesters, depending on, again, are you shipping to finished goods? Are you shipping for ingredients? Are you shipping to distributors? All those different things will impact your traceability requirements. Manufacturers and processors are actually pretty similar in terms of the requirements. I've separated them here just for clarity. I consider a manufacturer to be somebody who's maybe making a finished product or a packaged good. And in that situation, if your product goes through a kill step as part of the manufacturing process, you don't have a KDE requirement or a FSMA 204 requirement for your product leaving your facilities, but you still will have customer requests to do traceability, right? So just as we mentioned with the products that aren't in the food traceability list for produce, a lot of packaged products, most packaged products, not on the food traceability list for the FDA, but customers are still requiring traceability. So just understand, if you make products that have nut butters, and then you have other SKUs that don't have nut butters, your customers are going to want you to do traceability for everything because it's hard for them to know which of your products have nut butters and which ones that don't have nut butters, especially if you have a lot of SKUs. If you have a lot of SKUs and some of them have nut butters and some of them don't, it's very hard for your customers to keep track of the SKUs that have nut butters and those that don't. So again, you're going to get those customer required traceability questions or criteria, even if you don't have a nut butter in the product. And you may have FSMA required inbound raw materials or raw ingredients for your receiving record. Also, you may have that. And then if you're manufacturing, but your product, the product that you manufacture is also on the food traceability list, then you're going to have transformation. And the same goes for processors. If you're further processing produce, if you're cutting carrots down to make bag baby carrots, you're processing, you've got inbound, you don't have inbound key data elements for carrots, but you have outbound because the product is fresh cut at that point. If you've processed it, it's fresh cut. So it's on the food traceability list. Again, you're going to get those customer requests to do traceability regardless. So processors, kind of similar to manufacturers. If your process institutes a kill step, then your traceability requirements outbound stop for the FDA, but may not stop for customers. So you can start to see, right, how this is going to be complicated depending on where you sit in the supply chain, the types of products that you handle. And of course, all of this has to be spelled out for the FDA in your traceability plan. And then finally, distributors. I've defined as a distributor as you don't change the product, right? It comes in, it goes out. You're breaking down pallets into case quantities, and you're creating mixed case pallets to ship out to customers, but you're not changing anything. You're not processing, you're not repacking. You're purely a distributor. If you're a distributor and there are very few distributors that aren't carrying anything that's not on the food traceability list. There may be some cases where you're a niche product distributor and you don't have anything that's on the food traceability list. That is, you don't have anything fresh, you don't have anything with a nut butter, you may not have a product that's on the food traceability list, and therefore FSMA 204 may not apply to you. You still could have customer requests to do traceability, so you need to be ready for that. Every other distributor, the vast majority of distributors carry products that are on the food traceability list, either produce, either seafood, either eggs, cheeses, something like that that's on the food traceability list. So you're going to be in the game, traceability game for the FDA, but you're certainly going to potentially be in the traceability game for the other products that you ship as well. So as a distributor, you should really be thinking, I will likely be in the trace everything game very soon. If not, you're already there, but you're going to get there very soon. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. We should point out that for FSMA 204, now the largest data collaboration project in the history of the food supply chain, right? I get this question still today after a couple of years of people studying up on traceability. One forward, one back doesn't work. So what's that mean? Under the Bioterrorism Act, you used to have to keep a record of who I bought it from and who I shipped it to. And so you just kept your own records and that was enough. So if anybody asks, you could say, yep, I can tell you where I bought it from and I can tell you who I shipped it to. Under FSMA 204, that doesn't work. You're going to have to share information. The product has to, the lot code information and the related KDEs have to move between the trading partners as the product moves between the trading partners. It's a handoff. I have a slide on it later that demonstrates it like a handoff, right? And we get asked a lot about labels. Labels won't be enough. I'll explain in a minute why labels won't do all of traceability. They're important. They're a piece of the puzzle. They don't solve the whole problem. And then ASNs. You may see customers that are talking about or asking for advanced shipping notices. Advanced shipping notices are not the best traceability source of traceability data because in many cases they're not what shipped. It's what was planned to be shipped. A bill of lading is a much more accurate source of traceability information. So when you're looking at things like ASNs or you're considering using ASNs as a source of traceability information, please, if you're thinking about doing that, reach out to us and let us talk you through why it's not a great idea, because you want the most accurate traceability records, and ASNs don't have the most accurate shipment data because they're not a record of what was shipped. They're a record of what likely will be shipped. It's by definition, it's an advanced shipping notification. It's not a bill of lading, which is a confirmation of what shipped. Okay, so let's dive in for just a minute on the key data element list. If you've been on one of my webinars over the last year and a half, you've seen this slide a lot, or versions of this slide. I just want to point out to you that the food traceability list that I've referenced is, again, on the side here. It's this image on the side with all of the products on it. If you have questions about the food traceability list, there's a huge amount of information around it on the FDA's website. I'm happy to answer any questions about it too. We like to point out that, again, retailers and wholesalers struggle with the food traceability list. Why? It's very difficult to sort out a soft cheeses from hard cheeses in distribution center shipping and receiving and store receiving. If a mixed load of produce comes in, it's very hard for operations to deal with that. What do I need to worry about traceability and which things can I ignore? Which is, again, one of the reasons why you're going to see more and more companies, particularly the larger ones that operate a big volume, moving to tracing everything type of an approach. This is the minimal key data element list required for FDA traceability. Again, a lot of companies are going beyond this, but this is the key data element list required for traceability. And you can see that the data at the top is all related to the product, and the data at the bottom under the line is all related to the shipment. And that's what a key data element list is for FSMA traceability. It's a combination of product identifier information and shipment information, logistics information, right? It's the what it is and how much and when and where did it move, right? And for that reason, labels alone will never be enough to create traceability, because labels don't have all the key data elements on the label. They never will. Why is that? So let's think about that for a minute. What's on a label? When's a label applied? A label is applied usually when the product is packed or repacked or processed, right? At that time, the company that's applying the label doesn't know where it's going to ship 2 weeks from now, 2 days from now. They don't know the quantity in which it will ship, right? They don't know who they'll ship it to in most cases. Product can sit in a warehouse and then get shipped out. The label will never have all of the key data elements. And so for that reason, the label will never be the answer. So if you tell your customer who wants you to do traceability, hey, the lot code's on the label, just take it from that, that's not enough. The label data has to be shared, has to be combined with the other key data elements related to the shipment. And that's why it's better if there's another way to share that information, not just, hey, scan the label. By the way, distribution centers that have a lot of deliveries during the course of a day, dozens, maybe hundreds, they don't scan at the case level, and they can't scan at the case level. Now, they may scan a pallet tag, but they're not going to scan at the case level. There isn't enough time to do that. So label scanning alone doesn't get the job done. You do need to have a good label. Some of your customers will force you to use a GS1 label like the one that's on the bottom of the page here. I've got a link here to GS1. If you don't use GS1 labels and you ship to large grocery retailers, you better get started on your GS1 label work, because they're going to require you to use a GS1 label, and they will refuse your loads at some point and stop buying from you eventually if you don't have a GS1 label. It's in their requirements. These large retailers have put that in their requirements. So you're going to have to change your labels. At a minimum, you need a label that has a human or machine readable barcode. We see lots of labels that come in today that don't have a traceability lot code. So it doesn't have a barcode, and it doesn't have the lot code spelled out anywhere that a human being could read it. That's not going to be acceptable in the future either. So if you check out your labels, look at every label format that you have for all of your products, and again, understand that what your customer requirements are. If you're a FSQA professional on the call today, and many of you are, you need to go to your management and explain this. Hey, we're going to have to make an investment in labels, and that might mean a new labeling system. And that's capital expense, and those things usually don't happen overnight. And so you're going to need to get to work on this. Check out your labels, do yourself a favor, and understand where you are and what your gaps are around the labels, because you're going to have customers telling you, I can't accept your product because the label doesn't meet my format. And the deadlines for that, by the way, for some of the large retailers are the middle of this year. It's not January of 2026, it's June of 2025. So this is an urgent issue. If you have non-compliant labels, you need to address that. So let's talk about some of the things you can do to take steps to get ready now. And I'm going to move into and show you our system and what it looks like to use ReposiTrak for traceability. But we would encourage you to actually turn this into an advantage for your business. Become traceability friendly, right? It's a very competitive marketplace. Everybody's trying to get new customers. You have salespeople on your team that every day they wake up thinking about, how do I go find a new customer or sell more to the customers I already have? Being traceability ready or traceability friendly can help you do that. You can teach your customers who aren't yet squared away on traceability how to do traceability and the easy ways to do traceability. But certainly the ones that require traceability, you could market to them that you're traceability friendly, and you can actually do that regardless of your technical systems or capabilities, right? So there are ways to do this, and I want to show you how you do it with ReposiTrak. Here are some of the things that you're going to need to get ready when you're making connections to traceability systems. So we actually have a website resource for you that I'll show you in a minute that will walk you through this, provide you some checklists, and help you start to get prepared to become traceability friendly, because you're going to need these things regardless of how you do traceability. You're going to need to understand, lot codes and shipment facility IDs and ship to IDs, and all of these things are necessary to move into traceability because it's a data handoff, right? It's like a relay race. If you ever watch the Olympics, you watch track and field, I love the relay race, right? Because it's usually 4 different people and they're running, and they're all fast, but they have to do this very precise handoff. So I like that as a metaphor for traceability, because that's what you're doing. As your product moves through the supply chain, you need to hand it off. That handoff could look different depending on the customer. With ReposiTrak, you can share the information with ReposiTrak the easiest way for you, and ReposiTrak can get it to your customer in the way that they want it, even if they've decided to do traceability in a different way and not use ReposiTrak. So ReposiTrak's not just a solution for your customers who have elected to use ReposiTrak, it could be a solution for all of your customers. So you got to think about it as a relay race, and you share your information, you relay it off to ReposiTrak, and we run the next leg and relay it off to the customer in any way they want it. You're going to get obviously a recording of this webinar, and you can have the webinar deck if you like. You can let me know if you want it, I'll send it to you. But this is a good link because you can go out here and go to this link and understand how you can do traceability through ReposiTrak with all your customers, and how easy it is to get started and what it costs. So it's actually a lot cheaper than you think. You can get started for as little as $49 a month per ship from facility, and we can set you up to do traceability in any way that your customers want to do traceability. Okay, so as I mentioned, within 24 hours, you're going to get hopefully we'll have the webinar recording. We'll send it out to everybody. You can click on the links. You can go to these, prepare to connect. Again, we've got resources here for you, checklists and information gathering tools that will walk you through what you need to do to make your company ready for traceability. There's a pretty good chance everybody on the webinar today has at least one customer request to do traceability that you may not have activated yet, and that's probably why you're here to do on the webinar, to learn more about it. The ReposiTrak Traceability Network is rapidly growing, as you can see. It's a big network of suppliers and their customers, suppliers to suppliers, suppliers to DC, retailer DCs, wholesaler DCs, and all the way down to retail. Okay, now I'm going to try to navigate here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a minute, and I'm going to navigate over to the system, and I want to show you some things inside the system so you can get a sense. If you haven't used ReposiTrak yet, you can get a sense of what it's like to do traceability in ReposiTrak. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so now you should see this one. Okay, so this is, and Mason, tell me if I'm not on the right screen, but I think I am. So what I want to show you now, thank you. What I want to show you now is two different versions of what traceability looks like using the ReposiTrak system. And the first thing I want to show you is the supplier version of it. Now, keep in mind, there are 4 different ways to get data into the ReposiTrak system when you're sharing data with your customers, traceability data. The best way is that we set up an automated data sharing protocol with your system. So if you're a company that has an ERP or a warehouse management system or some sort of automated system that generates a bill of lading and has your lot codes, or maybe multiple systems that have that data, typically we can set up an automated data share where every time you ship, at the end of the day, a job will run and that will push a formatted file to ReposiTrak automatically with no human intervention. And we'll pull your traceability data from that, and we'll populate the traceability records that your customers require in the format that they need it. By the way, at the same time, we create your shipping KDE record that's required by FSMA 204. So let me go into the system now. I want to show you, many of you actually use the system today for compliance management for one or more of your customers. So this should look familiar. You've got the compliance button there. I'm going to click on traceability. I go in here, there's a little bit of a kind of a dashboard. I'm going to click this thing that says traceability links. And in here, this very simple menu is where I would, if I need to manually upload a document to deliver traceability data, I need to make corrections. I can type in my data. That's another way to get data in the system. You can do all of that right here. You can also retrieve your own records from the system and meet the FSMA 204 requirement, which is 24 hours. You have to save this data for 24 months. You have to be able to export it in a sortable spreadsheet within 24 hours. So let me show you what that looks like. So again, this is a company that we've set up to look like a fruit and produce supplier. So this is a harvester, right? Or maybe a processor, but this is somebody who's doing produce, right? So they might have receiving records if they're a distributor, but I want to concentrate on their shipping records, right? So you can see here under enter and review shipping documents, I can manually enter my shipping KDEs. So if I don't do a lot of volume and I want to actually just type in my information, I can go in here and type it in. The customer locations will be preset for this customer location, the from, the to, the tracking number, and so forth. I can drag a document in if I need to, like a bill of lading, and then I click the next screen to go to add the lot code. I fill out a couple more fields, I save it, and it's done. And it's off to my customer just that quick. Again, if you're small volume, you're not doing a lot of volume, maybe you're only shipping 1 or 2 lot codes that way, and maybe you only do a few a week, you might want to do it that way. You probably also want to consider doing it with an upload, and you do that right here, right? So you can actually upload a document. This would be a formatted, like an Excel spreadsheet that we would work with your teams to format. You just keep it formatted the same way every time. You drag it in here, click file upload, and you're done. All of the information that we need, we'll pull from that. All of the KDEs, where you're shipping it from, where you're shipping it to, the lot codes, the quantities, the unit of measure, all of that, obviously the date, everything would be captured. If you've got the automated data sharing set up, your shipping records will come into ReposiTrak automatically and share with your customers who are connected. automatically, or we'll get them to your customers who aren't in the network in the way that they want it. Let's say they require EDI. You don't do EDI today, no problem. We do EDI. So you can upload your information to ReposiTrak just by dragging a file in, and we'll EDI it down to your customer for you. No problem. They don't have to be in the ReposiTrak network for that to happen. We call that being out of network. So you're going to have in-network customers, out-of-network customers. You can take care of both of them the same way. But let's go in here and locate a KDE, right? Let's go look up a KDE record. And I think in this situation, I might have, this is produce, so I think I probably have mangoes. So if I just start to type in mango, all of my mango records are going to show up here, right? So here's a lot code of mangoes with the key data elements. I can export that to Excel. There was only one. So let's do locate any KDE. Whoops, I'm clicking the wrong one. Let's do view my shipping KDE records. This is all of the shipping KDE records, right? So now I can see that it's mangoes and it's Bartlett pears, and it goes on for 56 pages, right? So this is a company that's some sort of a produce distributor apparently, and they're shipping a lot of different things, but all of those are here. You want to see the shipping KDE record? Look, it looks just like what we showed you in the PowerPoint. The product information is at the top, the lot code description, the lot code source reference, and here at the bottom, all of the shipment related information. There'll be a reference document number there. It would be like a bill of lading, right? How about the export to Excel, right? I need to be able to get it out of, people always ask me, is there a format for the sortable spreadsheet? What's the sortable spreadsheet look like? How do I create the sortable spreadsheet? The FDA hasn't stipulated a format for the sortable spreadsheet, right? So the ReposiTrak system will actually export all of the data that's been collected from your records, and it could be way more than this, right? It could be a lot more. It could be country of origin. It could be expiration date. There are maybe other data points that need to be collected, and if they are, they'll be part of the sortable spreadsheet. And you simply click Create Sortable Spreadsheet, and off we go here now to Excel. I'm opening the Excel file. You can see it opening now, and I'll drag it in. And just that fast. Mason, can you see the sortable spreadsheet?
Yep, I see it here.
Okay, yep, so there's the sortable spreadsheet, just like that. So it takes about a minute. You can search for any individual lot code, product description, ship from, ship to, the dates, it's all captured, right? If it's a data element that can be captured, it's a data element that can be queried. So you can use this to run reports, or again, this will help you satisfy the requirement of FSMA 204, the sortable spreadsheet within 24 hours. This one you can run in about a minute. Okay, so now let me jump over into, I'm in a different account now, and this account looks like a distribution company that does a lot of different things. And so this is the customer of that produce distributor. This is a company that distributes lots of different kinds of products. And so let's jump into their traceability experience, and we'll see, and I've timed out because that's what ReposiTrak does, is it times out because that's what it does for security reasons. So I'm going to log back in, and I'm going to go to Graco because that's my company. I always have the messaging at the top, right? It's telling me I've got a request to connect from one of my customers. I haven't done that yet, so I need to do that. I'm going to skip it for now. I'm going to go into traceability. I'm going to look at the menu. Again, now as a distributor, I can see I've invited my suppliers into the system so I can track how they're cooperating with my requirement to use ReposiTrak. But what I want to see here is the receiving records, right? Because I have receiving records and I have shipping records, but we've seen shipping. So let's look at the receiving records. So let's pull those up. So now here are all the receiving records of the products that came from different companies that came into the location that is the Graco distribution center. And you can see all of those. And again, let's create the sortable spreadsheet right there. View the receiving record right there, right? So everything's just a click away. Want to look up an individual item? Let's do, I think there might be some eggs in here. Eggs, egg salad, right? Here's egg salad. So here's all the egg salad. If I had known the lot number, I could have looked it up by the lot number, right? So, whoops, I need to hit find so that it goes to egg salad. There's egg salad, right? So there's my 2 egg salad records. I can create a sortable spreadsheet, send it off to Excel. Okay, so that's it. That's how the system works. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Again, as a reminder, how does the data get into the system from your systems? These are the most often asked questions. If you have an ERP, a warehouse management system, if you have ways that that you generate an electronic bill of lading, it would be like sending that electronic bill of lading automatically to our system every night. And if you, all you have to do, we've got a great resource center that tells your IT people how to set that up. Our tech team can hold your hand and walk you through it. It's very, very simple. About half of the people using the traceability network today are simply sending us an Excel file to a secure FTP site, and we pull it in automatically that way. The best way is automated, but if you can't do automated, that's okay. We can meet you where you are. Okay, so in summary, traceability is here. You're going to get a lot of questions around this, right? And you've got requirements today. There's no reason to wait. There's no reason to wait. But if you still have questions after the webinar, because we're going to do questions right now, you could call or email me. We'll talk. It's not a sales call. It's an education call. There's no obligation. You don't have to pay for the time, right? We'll help you understand what the industry is doing, what your competitors are doing, what many of your customers are doing or soon will be doing to help you get prepared for traceability, right? So you can always reach out to me, but we're going to move to the Q&A right now. I promised you some extended time for Q&A, and I see we've got about 19 minutes, so that's pretty good Q&A. So I'll come back on screen and punish you by making you look at my face, and Mason will read me questions. Go ahead, Mason.
Alrighty, first one here. My company is working on EDI, but will not be capable to send ASNs next year. If we decide to use a CSV, can we switch to an ASN for traceability with in the future with ReposiTrak?
Yeah, sure you can, but you might not need to, right? You might not need to, because if you can send the data to us in the way that's easiest for you today, we can send the ASN on your behalf. We can do the EDI and the ASN. We can get it downstream for you. So just call us and let's talk about it. It's, again, no obligation. We'll just walk you through the best way to do it. If you decide you want to change later, you can change later, but you may find you don't actually need to do that. There are some major retailers are telling suppliers you have to do EDI. You don't have to do EDI. They need to get it as an EDI ASN. We can get it there for you. You can send the data to us in any way that's easy for you. So if that's not clear, schedule some time with us, send me an email, we'll set up some time. We'll bring in a tech person. If you don't have a tech person, right, our tech people will explain it to you in a way that's easy. But if you have a tech person, many companies don't have a full-time tech person, maybe you've got a third party that you contract that work out, schedule a call with us, just 30 minutes. We'll walk you through it so you understand the requirements.
All right, next one here. You're saying that suppliers need to be compliant well ahead of the 2026 deadline for FSMA 204. While attending some of the committee meetings with the Partnership for Food Traceability, they state that they are hoping for pilot programs and to help FDA and the industry understand gaps and optimize the implementation of electronic traceability. How can retailers expect suppliers to make such large-scale investments into programs in Q1 and Q2 of 2025 when PFT is still working towards understanding the implications in the same time frame?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because clearly the industry is in different places, different pockets of the industry in different places in terms of how fast traceability should move. If you ship to Walmart and Kroger, you have a deadline to do traceability. That's the only thing I would say to you. If you are invited into the ReposiTrak traceability network by one or more customers, you have a deadline to do traceability. Those companies aren't waiting for pilots. They don't need pilots. They have systems to work. Traceability might be less expensive than you think, right? Now, I don't understand everybody's considerations or where you fit in the supply chain in terms of your upstream requirements, or if you run a distribution center, or if you process, and I'm happy to talk with anybody about those things. But downstream traceability, data sharing with your customers might be cheaper than you think. We should talk about it. But these are hard things to resolve, because there are people in the industry saying, wait for the election, wait for the new FDA leader, wait for. Your customers aren't waiting. That's the problem. It's not an FDA issue largely anymore. It's a market issue. It's a customer issue. Customers are now setting the deadlines. And if you ship to those large companies, or you want to, you're going to have to comply with their deadlines. So yeah, I get it. It's a confusing spot for suppliers to be in, but at the end of the day, you don't want to risk your business by not being in compliance with the customer requirement. This is a hard thing for companies that don't have products on the food traceability list too, because I know this traceability was not on their radar at all. And then suddenly, a year ago, Kroger said, guess what? Traceability for everybody. And so companies have to deal with this. Yeah, I know it's a tough one. Let us see if we can help you with it. Talk to us and see if we can help you. Maybe we can make it easier than you think.
All right, next question here. If we make pasta sauce, not on the list by itself, but our pasta sauce includes tomatoes, does that mean we are part of the list?
For receiving of the raw tomatoes, you are, yeah. But after that, you're done. You don't have to do anything for transformation or outbound shipping to satisfy the FDA. But again, don't be surprised if you have a customer that says, I'm tracing your pasta sauce. You have to do traceability for your pasta sauce because they're doing traceability for all food. So yeah, your pasta sauce that's jarred, I assume, right? It goes into a jar. That processing involves a kill step. The kill step stops the FDA requirement, may not stop a customer requirement. They still might need you to do traceability.
And then for GS1 labels, is this at a pallet or a case level?
It could be both. It depends on your customer requirement. So if you don't know, again, shoot me an email. The customer requirements that we're aware of have been published and are public, and we'll help you with those. There is a GS1 standard for a pallet label, and there is a GS1 standard for a case label, and I think the companies that require GS1 are going to want you to do both. Certainly the case label.
Then you already touched on this one a bit, but is it possible that the upcoming federal administration will hamper the FDA's efforts into this?
Yeah, again, I don't think Kroger or Walmart care about any of that, right? And so this is what I would encourage you to think about. This is an industry issue now, right? If you look at Kroger's requirement, and again, to be clear, we're not working directly with Kroger on traceability, but we can help you with them, deal with them and their requirement. But if you look at their requirement, they're doing all food, so they're going way beyond the FDA's food traceability list, and the deadline is 6 months ahead of the FDA. Why would they do that? Why do you suppose they would do that, right? The only reasons we can think of is they think it's operationally easier to do it that way, and or they're going to use it as a marketing. They want to advertise having the safest food in the industry. Everything that comes into the store was traced. We know the provenance of everything. That's a pretty powerful marketing position for a big chunk of consumers, right? So I don't think the FDA's decision making is going to have any impact at all on those decisions. So the question you have to ask yourself is this now an industry issue or is it an FDA regulatory issue? We think it's an industry issue, right? And because we already have customers going beyond the food traceability list as well. And we think that will just flow more and more. So look, if you want to bank on the fact that something might happen with FSMA 204, that's a business decision. Our advice would be become traceability friendly. It's not that hard, right? For many of you, it's not that hard. It's easier than you think. Look into it. At least look into it. Because while everybody else, for anybody else who is waiting, there's market share to be had. There's a market share opportunity. Now, I know we probably don't have a lot of salespeople on the phone today, but you all have colleagues who are salespeople. And as a salesperson, I can tell you, they wake up every day thinking about how they grow your business. That's what their job is, right? Traceability can help, right? So you can be the standoffish guy who's playing the wait and see game, or you can be the cooperative, collaborative supply chain partner who's trying to create a safer food supply chain. But these are just business decisions, that's all. But we wouldn't advise anybody to sit and wait. We haven't seen anything that would suggest that anybody associated with the new administration might want to slow this down, but it's just a guess. Nobody really knows.
How would the format of the uploaded file be decided? Is it pre-existing or customer specific?
It can be both, right? Most of our customers are using the template that we recommend, but you don't have to do it that way. You can upload the file in any way you want, and we map it. That's the beauty of working with ReposiTrak. You do it your way, and we comply. We call it Burger King. It's a Burger King approach. We do it your way, right? It's whatever format you need. As long as the data elements are all there, we can map it into ReposiTrak. It just has to come consistently. So once you agree on what the format is, it comes consistently because we map it into the system on our end, and it looks for those fields all the time. The other thing it's doing is it's looking for errors, right? The system looks for errors. So if you happen to have an error, we'll catch it and push it back to you and say, hey, you had an error. So we'll help keep your records accurate as well.
And then on that same topic, what is the process to set up automatic data sharing? We run Sage X3 as our ERP. Is there any compatibility between Sage X3 and ReposiTrak to set up that automatic data sharing?
Yeah, we have a great resource center that has everything that you would need on that. And I'm happy, if you send me an email, I'm happy to send it to you. But it's the ReposiTrak website. If you go to repositrak.com and search resource center, you'll find all of the details. And what you'll do is, if you're not the tech person in your company, you'll send that link to your tech person and say, hey, check this out. Looks like we can do this, right? And they'll confirm to you that they can or they can't. If the system can export a file, we can take it, right? So it's not like we have to create a special thing for Sage and a special thing for Oracle and a special thing for Microsoft and a special thing for Manhattan. It doesn't work that way. If your system can export the data, we can ingest it, right? That's the easiest thing to think about. ReposiTrak can take it in. We do it. We ingest 7,000 files a day right now. 7,000, right, across all different kinds of systems. So it's not, it won't be a technical limitation as long as your system can export a file. We can ingest it.
Next question here. We are a brand owner that source ingredients, send them to our co-man and co-packers, and hire a third-party logistic for distribution. Under which category do we fall?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think I actually had that in the supplier types and I took it out. So when we get this question a lot, your customers think of you as the supplier, assuming you don't sell through a broker, right? But they think of you as the supplier. So if you're the brand owner, your customer doesn't think about you own the manufacturing facility or you don't own the manufacturing facility, right? They don't distinguish between co-man or self-man or anything like that, right? They just know you send them an invoice, they send you a PO and you send them an invoice. So you're the supplier. In the eyes of the FDA, you're the entity that controls the facility and therefore you are holding the product because that third party is under contract to your company. So technically, and confirm this with your legal counsel because I'm not an attorney, but you're controlling that entity through your contractual relationship with the 3PL. And therefore, if you do have product on the food traceability list going in and out, or you're transforming, you're on the hook for FSMA 204. But certainly customer required traceability, they're going to consider you the supplier. And that co-man facility in the ReposiTrak world, that co-man facility can be associated with you as your facility and 10 other brand owners who also use the same co-manufacturing facility to make their products. So because everything has to happen at the facility level, right? The traceability records are facility specific from this facility to that facility. And so that facility identification is really important. But so if any of that's not clear, happy to have more of a conversation about it. But the fact that you co-man versus self-man doesn't really come into play. You're just consider it, you're like everybody else. If you've got products on the food traceability list and or you've got a customer that requires you to do traceability, you need to figure out how to do the data sharing, which might mean your 3PL, your co-man might have to share data with you from their systems at the KDE level. Your 3PL might have to share data with you from their systems, or they might have to share data on your behalf with other systems at the KDE level. Those are the kinds of things you have to work through, right? They're not insurmountable challenges. You just got to work through it.
Next question here. Where is it that you get the lot number or lot code?
Good question. So this would be a good point where we would have a conversation because my question would be, where do you fit into the supply chain? The FDA determines where lot codes get assigned, right? So you can't just assign a lot code whenever you want. I talk to a lot of distribution centers, warehouses, and they assign a tracking number. And in many cases, they think of that as the lot code. It's not the lot code. The lot code can only legally be assigned at certain places in the food supply chain, and it tends to be at harvest or processing, right? That's where the lot code is assigned. So you create the lot code. If you're a processor or you pack product or you're the first land-based receiver for seafood, you have to generate lot codes. If you're not doing that today, you have to create a system to generate a lot code. You don't have to use technology to do it. You can do it manually, but if you ship in any kind of volume, you're going to need to do it manually because you're going to need to do it with a system because you need to print a label. The lot code has to be on the label. So just understand, if you're shipping products today and you don't have a lot code and there's not a lot code on the label, you're not going to be able to do that in the future. In the very near future, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to fix that. So if you're not the packer, the manufacturer, the processor, you're downstream from them. The lot code comes to you from them. They generate the lot code or they get it upstream from their supplier. Hopefully that makes sense. The FDA has great resources on the FSMA site around when, who, and how a lot code is created based on the critical tracking events, and you can check it out there. Just you do FSMA, FDA FSMA 204, just Google that. You'll land on the right site more than likely. You'll have to skip all the paid ads from the traceability companies, of course, but once you see the one that's the FDA, you'll go to you'll see it. They have menus and they steer you to the lot code page. And if you can't find it, email me. My email is right there on the screen. Send me an email, I'll send it to you.
What if the manufacturing facility is outside of the US? How do we establish this system?
The requirement's the same for FSMA, right? The requirement is the same for FSMA. So FSMA applies to foreign suppliers. Any suppliers outside the US shipping into the US are treated like domestic. Well, they actually have more requirements, but they're essentially from a food safety regulatory standpoint, they're treated the same. So it's all the same requirements. So again, if you have specific questions about what that might look like, but you're going to have a facility identifier. You're going to have, by the way, the one thing we haven't talked about, I should mention this during the lot code conversation, the lot code source or lot code source reference, that's the location at which the lot code was assigned. Also required on the key data element list, right? Under FSMA, you're going to have to share that. So you have to share the lot code, but you also have to share the location at which the lot code was assigned. That can be a shipping address, like a physical address, right? It can be an FDA registration number, a USDA registration number. It can be a geolocation. Again, the FDA lays those options out on the FDA website, the lot code, the traceability lot code page, and you can understand all your options there. But that's the kind of thing, if the manufacturing facility or the harvest facility is overseas, and obviously many thousands are in the US supply chain, all the same rules apply, and you're going to have all the same KDEs.
We are a vertically integrated seafood industry from farming to exporting. How much time does it take to get the process done?
Good question, right? So and I'm trying not to be vague, but unfortunately I'm going to be vague. It just depends on how complex it is, not technically, but like how many entities there are involved. So if you're the first land-based receiver or you run the farms, right? You've got control over that part of it. So you control what happens there, and you can control what technology options are adopted if any are. And then, if you run the processing facility, same thing. But if there are other processors involved, not so much. And one of the biggest challenges we see in seafood is it is such a complex supply chain, right? Many times before the product that's harvested, and I think most of it is harvested outside the US, before it gets to the US, it can touch a lot of different people, right? A lot of different parties, whether it's farmed or fresh caught, it's complex, right? And everybody in seafood knows that already. So it just depends on how many entities there are. The more you control in your supply chain, the faster it will go, because you control all the steps. Like if you source from 10 different processors, you need 10 different entities to cooperate with some kind of a system. If you're the processor, easy, you do it yourself. So happy to have that conversation. We talk to seafood companies all the time about quite a large number of seafood companies have already come into the ReposiTrak traceability network. So happy to have that conversation, share what we know.
Are the traceability rule requirements easier for baked products than raw products?
Yeah, because if you bake, there's probably a kill step. Again, don't take my word for it. Do your own homework. If you're a food safety professional, if your process involves a kill step. Baking is probably a kill step, right? So if you're making a baked product, even if it had a nut butter as an ingredient, or obviously eggs, right? Eggs used in baking, You don't have to trace eggs after they've been baked in a cake batter, in a bread, right? You don't have to trace the eggs. You don't have to trace the nut butters if it's been through a kill step. So generally speaking, from a FSMA perspective, a baked product, probably the ingredients might be on the food traceability list and you might have to trace them inbound, but your process involves a kill step. And so your FSMA traceability requirement stops. That doesn't mean your customer traceability requirements will necessarily go away. Again, the nut butters thing is particularly challenging. If you make breakfast bars or snack foods or confectionery and you've got raw nut butters in your products, hasn't been through a kill step, you're on the food traceability list. If you have other products that don't have the nut butters, it's very high, especially if you have a lot of SKUs, it's really hard for your customers to know and track which products they need to trace and which ones they don't. So don't be surprised if they say, we need traceability data for everything that you ship us. Just don't be surprised when you hear that, because they can't sort it out and they can't keep track of it. And then when you introduce a new product, they don't have a good way to vet to determine if it needs to go on the traceability list or not. And so what you're going to end up with, this is already happening, by the way. If you have products with nut butters, you already know this. Your customers are asking you, you're getting surveys, questionnaires, do you have products on the food, or they use nut butters, because they don't know. They can't keep track of products that have nut butters and which ones don't. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of products with nut butters. So it's really complicated for large wholesalers and large retailers with a lot of SKUs to know, ice cream. A lot of people don't think about ice cream. A lot of the nut butters in ice cream is raw. It's not been through a kill step. So that's on the list, has to be traced. So there's a lot of surprises, around nut butters and that sort of thing. Bakery products, you're probably off the hook for downstream for FSMA, but you're going to still have to do traceability with your customers based on their requirements.
Right.
How we
We
doing,
have
Mason?
time. Yeah, we still have more questions if you have time to answer them.
I do. I don't even know what time it is. What time is it? Oh, it's 3:02. I can stay on I can keep going. I don't know how many people are still on. God bless them. They took a break from their online Christmas shopping. Just kidding. I know you're all working a week out from Christmas. Go ahead. Let's keep going. We've got 146 people on the phone.
Alrighty. So here's the next question. Does an automated SFTP file transfer, is that transfer supported? If yes, where can I find the connection details, or should I coordinate with any counterpart from ReposiTrak?
Yeah, yes to both, to all. You can find the details on the Supplier Resource Center, ReposiTrak.com. I think it's, Angela, help me out. What is that URL? So ReposiTrak.com Resource Center, is that what it is? /Resource Center?
It is traceability-resource-center, and we will send that out as part of the email that's sent to the group within 24 hours of this event.
Great, thank you. So we'll put that link in when we send out the recording, but that's where you go. And there's different options. You just click on those and it lays everything out for you. All the details about data sharing are on the website. It's all there. We have a team to support you though. So if you still have questions after that, reach out to us. Anybody, you can, there are two different email helplines, right? If you're trying to set up your data sharing in ReposiTrak, not your data sharing, just establish your account for traceability, enrollment at ReposiTrak.com. If you're into that part where you're trying to share your file and you're struggling with it for whatever reason, support at ReposiTrak.com. Those are the email addresses. You can bail out and email me if you need to, right? I'll get it to where it needs to go. But the team is here to help you. I mean, we've got a whole team, a US-based team of support and service people to help you with this. But the technical requirements that you can share with an IT person, right on the website.
What if the company is still handwritten inbound and outbound bill of lading forms?
Yeah, so you can, the easiest way would probably be to translate it into an Excel spreadsheet and upload it into ReposiTrak. I mean, if you're talking about how to use ReposiTrak, that's the easiest way to do it. You can type it in. Assuming you're doing things handwritten, usually that suggests that the volumes are lower, and we can accommodate that. So you don't have to invest in a system. You don't have to go buy an ERP to do traceability. You don't, right? We've got many companies doing traceability day in ReposiTrak who don't. They use QuickBooks. You don't have to make a big investment in expensive systems to do this. You just don't. right? There's an easier way. So we'll handhold you through that. But if you're doing things very manually, handwritten, whatever, the easiest way is probably take that data and type it into a consistent format using our template and upload it. It's as easy as what I showed you. You go to upload my document, you drag it in, right? Or you go find it in your file, you click it, you save it, and you're done. It's as if you use ReposiTrak for sharing documents with customers, it's that easy. It's really simple.
Will these companies send requests through ReposiTrak? How do I know which of my customers I need to do this for?
Yeah, good question. Anybody who requires ReposiTrak will notify you, and we'll notify you, and you'll know because we'll send you emails over and over and over again. Anybody who knows anything about ReposiTrak as a supplier knows we're good at reminding you of things. So you'll know. If you have any questions, obviously you can reach out to us. People outside the traceability network, again, I mentioned a few, Kroger, Walmart, Target has published theirs, not using ReposiTrak directly. We can help you with those, right? Those requests probably are going to your salespeople. So if you do business with those companies and you haven't seen those requests yet, your sales team is who your customers have relationships with, right? So that's where the requests are going to go. They're going to send an email to the people that they know, and it may not be you, right? So we'll, that's okay. But if it's coming through ReposiTrak, you probably know, and if you're a user in ReposiTrak today, you definitely know because you'll be getting emails from us.
So if we are not ASN capable and the retailer requires ASN, we can send KDEs to ReposiTrak and ReposiTrak can create an ASN for us. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we're a full EDI shop. So what does that mean? That means we send and receive EDIs all the time, right? An ASN is just a template that's used in EDI, right? The ASN, it's like the 856 template, and whatever data they need, we can send it. So we can do that for you. Think of us as like an extension of your tech team, right? Or your data intermediary, or like think of us like when you travel to another country and you need an adapter to run your hairdryer, we can be your adapter. So no matter which country you go to, ReposiTrak can be your adapter so your hairdryer works, right? It's like that. You send us the data in the way that's easy for you, we'll get it to your customer in the way that they want it.
Right. Next question here. We sell roasted coffee. Will it be required to supply info from where the coffee was harvested?
Coffee is not on the food traceability list, so there won't be any FDA requirement to do that. Likely what your customers will ask you for in traceability is the lot. It looks like what the FDA requires. It's the lot code and the lot code source. And the lot code source will probably be, the lot code source will be where the lot code was assigned, which is probably where it was packed, right? So wherever that is, if it's packed near harvest or if it's packed somewhere later, that's likely where the lot code is assigned. And so they won't need to know the coffee plantation, but they'll need to know where the facility at which it was packed, because that's where the lot code would be assigned.
If I'm sending multiple different products on one bill of lading, do I have to upload one by one on the provided sheet, or can I upload all at once?
You can do it all at once.
All right. And is GTIN considered a lot code?
It includes the lot code. Well, the G10 is not a lot code, right? It's a product identifier, and then so that identifies the item. It's a global tracking item number, right? It's the item number. So it's not the lot code. But that long string of stuff that you see, let me go back. Sorry, I'll give you a headache by going back fast through the slides. I want you to see the G10 label, right? The G10 is up here at the front and the lot code's at the back of this GS1 label. So they're not the same, right? The G10 is more close like a SKU, and the lot code is obviously the production run or whatever your lot code assignment process is. Here's the GS1 link. Maybe we send that to Angela as the GS1 link. If ever gang, you're gonna get pulled into GS1 if you ship to big retailers. Just get ready for it. If you don't, you it yet. ReposiTrak doesn't require it, by the way. So nobody that we're working with today directly in the ReposiTrak traceability network requires the GS1 label, because the ReposiTrak system doesn't require the GS1 label to work. We can read all kinds of labels, it doesn't matter. But your big customers are going to move to this, and they're going to drive the industry toward it. So over time, may not have it right away, depends on who your customers are, but over time, get ready. You're going to, and it's good. It's a good thing for the industry. It will probably create some expense for you if you don't do it today. It's going to create some expense, but it does, standards are good. They make systems work better. It's just that we don't require standard today, so none of our customers are forcing that on anybody, but some of the big retailers definitely are. So it's coming. If you want to sell to them, get GS1 compliant. If you want to sell to them, because they won't consider you in the future, the near future, not down the road, unless you are. It'll be a condition of getting a PO. So you might as well do it. If you think you want to expand your business with large grocery retailers, make the investment, do it now.
Next question here is, KE is making it a requirement for us to use ReposiTrak, but the amount of money they said it would cost their suppliers each was more than the $49 a month cost. Just wanted to get some clarification on that.
Yep, good question. So there are two different fee structures for using ReposiTrak with your suppliers to share data. The suppliers so think of it as sort of like your healthcare, right? In network and out of network. So let's talk about in network first. In network means your customer is telling you to use ReposiTrak for traceability. They want your data to come through ReposiTrak. That's in network. The fee to do that is $179 per month after a $499 one-time setup fee, $179 a month. But that $179 a month is unlimited use for all of your customers who use ReposiTrak. There are 16 today companies using ReposiTrak, and probably within 3 months there'll be 30, and probably with 3 months after that there'll be 60, because next year's the year of traceability when everybody has to get into compliance. So it's a flat fee. It's $179. So when you get more and more customers that come into the network for ReposiTrak, you're going to be spreading that $179 over more and more shipments. So the cost per case goes way down. The $49 is the per customer charge to do outside the network. So if you wanted us to help you with Kroger for all of your Kroger shipments, $49 a month. Again, after the $4.99 setup fee, $49 a month to all the Kroger locations that you ship to, all the Kroger banners, by the way, all 19 banners, but all the Kroger locations that you ship to will be your data intermediary for $49 a month. Now, if you're big, and the same goes for Walmart, and the same goes for any but Target, right? We can be your data intermediary, and each one of those customers is another $49 a month. So if you have a lot of customers, you might be saying, that's a lot of money. Like, how can I use ReposiTrak for everything? That's a lot of money. We have flat fee program, right? So if you ship from one facility, once you get to $10,000 a year, and we'll do all your traceability, everything outside the network for $10,000 a year, and inside the network, it's $179 a month, right? So you can cap the cost of traceability with ReposiTrak to take care of all your customers. That's why we call it traceability for everyone, right? We'll cap it, right? If you have multiple facilities, right? So every new facility is another 10,000, but we'll cap the whole thing at 60,000. So I won't mention who it was, but I talked to a very large, one of the largest, probably top 25 CPGs in the country a couple of weeks ago. And when I talked to them about the $49, they like threw up their hands. And I said, guys, it's 60K total. We'll do all your traceability. 60,000 for them is nothing. Now, if you're a little guy, that seems like a lot. But again, you wouldn't get to 60,000 because you probably ship from one facility and you probably don't have as many customers as they do. So it's $49. If you've got 2 requests to do traceability outside the ReposiTrak traceability network today, and you ship from one facility, it's $100 a month. We'll take care of those traceability requests for you. That's how it works. So if any of that's not clear, I'm happy to walk you through it. The idea is it's a network. As the network gets bigger, you should have better economies, right? Your flat fee should be spread across more and more customers. Same for your customers. They have flat fee structure as well. Everybody pays a little bit, nobody pays a lot. And traceability ends up being cheaper, for the entire industry. That's the whole idea. Okay, what next, Mason? These are great questions.
So next question here. So far, we have seen deadlines and requirements from KE and Walmart. Has UNFI began sending out requirements for all food?
They have not. UNFI hasn't made their decision yet. We're involved with them in their review process, but they haven't made their decision yet. As has most of the industry, right? If you think about it, I mean, if you look at the ones that when I talk to big suppliers, they've said, oh, I've got 8 or 10 or maybe 12, right? I'm telling you, gang, it's coming. That could be like the floodgates opening, because people are waiting and they're going to run out of time, and they're going to say, these larger companies are going to say, hey, you know what? I can't afford to wait. I got to do this. I can't bank on something happening at the federal government level. And oh, by the way, my big competitors are tracing all food. How can I ignore that? And so we're just telling, I'm trying to scare you. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you get prepared. It's coming. It's coming. So just understand, we're a resource. We're a resource for you. And right now again, we're just a resource to help you understand what your options are.
If we buy an ingredient from a vendor, do we need to trace it from the vendor or from the manufacturer of the ingredient?
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I was trying to understand what it is. So it sounds like you're buying it from a distributor, let's say, right? They don't make the product, they distribute it. For FSMA 204, they have to share the data. Your vendor, your supplier, would have to share data with you related to the product that originated with the manufacturer, right? The manufacturer assigned the lot code. The distributor doesn't assign the lot code. The manufacturer does. So the distributor is going to have to get it from them, so they have it to give it to you. Or they're going to have to figure out what it is at the case label. They're going to have to collect the lot codes at their facilities and share them with you. But you don't have to jump them and go to the manufacturer. You can work directly with your direct supplier. They're the ones who have to provide data to you so that you can be in compliance.
All right, so you mentioned that the requirements would be unique from retailer to retailer. However, we've received a single 856 spec from our ReposiTrak rep. Does that spec cover all different requirements?
Most of the companies that ReposiTrak is working with today have started with the FSMA list. And some of them are going a little bit beyond it. So let me give you an example. We do require, like the ReposiTrak system requires the UPC. The UPC is not part of the food traceability list, right? It's another data element. But it's important for traceability after products get to the distribution center in the store, the UPC comes into play. It doesn't come into play as much supplier to distribution center, but later it does. So we need it because we use it to match data up and do different things with it to confirm records. So, I mean, that's an example of that's beyond the food traceability list. Other companies may just stick to the food traceability list, but those are some differences. You may have a custom, like the example that we just talked about. You may have a customer that ships to a customer that requires more data than the food traceability list, and therefore some of that will come from you. Let me give you an example. Country of origin, right? That's not on the food traceability list. A lot of your customers may not require country of origin. If you ship to a distributor and they have a customer that requests the country of origin, you're going to have to provide the country of origin to your customer because they won't know it any other way. It's not like the lot code that they can pick it up from the case. They're going to need to know the country of origin. So these are the kinds of things where the differences come into play. Some of the requirements involve the transporter. FSMA doesn't require the transporter information, but some companies will want it. What you're seeing as traceability is actually, it's food safety, but it's also operational efficiency. Really what we're talking about with this tracking of data, traceability, it's as much about supply chain efficiency as anything, right? Does it help with clearly the FDA's goal is food safety. They're all about food safety, right? And that's the whole goal of FSMA 204. But the companies who now are starting to get digital records and data sharing, there's a huge opportunity for supply chain efficiencies. That's why you see things like ASNs. ASNs create supply chain efficiency. They're not a good source of traceability information, unfortunately, but they do create supply chain efficiencies. Presumably they do, theoretically. But you're going to see more of that, and you're going to see it happening DC to store. If you ship DSD, right? If you're a egg supplier and you ship directly to stores, all the stores are going to have a requirement. If you ship eggs to a bunch of small independent stores, they may all do it differently. They may require you to do something different. So again, another reason to be on your game from a traceability perspective, because you can help your smaller customers figure out how to do it in a way that enhances your relationship with them and maybe gains you market share if you're competing. If you're sharing, the distribution with a competitor, maybe you elbow them out. I mean, these are there, but a lot of this is about supply chain efficiency. And so, yeah, you're going to see differences. There are differences. They may be minor, they appear minor on the surface, but when it comes to collecting the right key data elements for the right customers, it's going to get more and more complex as it rolls out.
Right. Can we send traceability information to ReposiTrak through NetSuite? If so, how can we get it set up?
You can. And in fact, we use NetSuite as our finance system. So you can, and it's in the Resource Center. We'll send you the Resource Center link and it'll lay out all the ways for you to do that. So, and anybody your tech people who know NetSuite, when you share that with them, they'll know what to do.
This might be a question just about if you need both in-network and out-of-network, but they were just wondering, do we need the in-network and the outside of the network plan?
No, it depends on your customer request, right? So the in-network, sounds like we're moving to a healthcare discussion now, right? It's open enrollment period. We just had our open enrollment period here at ReposiTrak. So in-network means you have at least one customer who is telling you, we want you to share your data through ReposiTrak. It's our requirement. That's basically what they're saying. So that's in-network. Using us outside of with any other supplier is optional for you, right? But we're providing it as a service for you because a lot of companies don't have the technology to meet the requirements of the customers, right? And again, that's, when you think about a large retailer like a Kroger or a Walmart, they probably have 30,000 suppliers, maybe more. Those suppliers are everything from, Kraft Heinz and Nabisco to, Mom's barbecue sauce and everybody in between. And in our experience, about 70% of the small suppliers don't even have an IT department. So you're not going to have an easy way to do it. We can be a way for you to do it. So if you get a customer that requires you to use ReposiTrak, you need to come into the network and get set up, start sharing data. If your customers are asking for traceability outside of that, just talk to us. We'll explain how it works. You don't have to use us. You might want to.
Can we send invoices via EDI through ReposiTrak as well as the traceability?
Yeah, you can. So if you want to call and talk about that, I would have to learn more about what it is you're trying to do. But ReposiTrak is a data sharing platform. I mean, it's system at the end of the day doesn't care what the data is. It depends on the business purpose and help. We just need to understand what your problem is. So we always start with the problem at ReposiTrak. It's kind of a mantra. Tell us where it hurts. It's like going to the doctor. Tell me where it hurts. What problem are you struggling with your invoices and delivering your invoices? And we'll see if we can fix it. But generally speaking, yeah, we can do that.
Do all Winco vendors need to participate in ReposiTrak?
They aren't doing all vendors yet. They're doing a less than all. They're not doing all.
All right, I'm just looking through all the questions here.
Still have 102 people hanging in there. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your patience. I hope you find this helpful. I'm happy to do it, and we're happy to have one-on-one conversations with you as well. I hope this has been a good use of your time.
Got one more here about a kill step. How do you define a kill step, heat treatment, other processes?
I'm going to let the FDA define a kill step because I'm not a food scientist and I'm not an expert on what constitutes kill step, right? There are different ways to eradicate the harmful bacteria that can lead to foodborne illness, and it's all spelled out on the FDA website. So we'll just go to FDA website or Google kill step FDA, and it's all laid out there. Or if you know a friendly food safety, food scientist person, they're probably more than happy to explain it to you. So we're not food scientists. We're process people, right? We're document data management process people. So I leave that to the experts. I have to say pass on that one. Heat is definitely one, right? Heat is definitely one. Heating something to 160 degrees is a kill step. And we know freezing is not a kill step. So let me just be clear about that. Freezing is not a kill step. So for bacteria. So, but there are several other ways to do it.
Do you see the future of manufacturers standardizing with GS1 128 labels for all of their products, regardless of the customer traceability requirements? And the same with SSCC labels as well?
Yeah, so if anybody doesn't know, the SSCC is the pallet label. So it's a long road. It's a long road. I mean, it's many thousands of, it's hundreds of thousands of companies, right? So it's a long road to standardization. These requirements from the large companies will drive it. They're certainly going to accelerate it. It's a very hard thing to predict because there is an expense involved for suppliers to move to the GS1 standard, and it would vary depending on the number of products you have and some other considerations. So anything that requires additional expense, it's going to be hard for suppliers to want to deal with it, but it's not going to happen before January of 2026, that's for sure. We hope it does. Look, it's good for the industry to have standards, but it's a long road. It's going to take a long time.
Next question, we follow BAP for traceability. What is the difference with ReposiTrak?
I don't know. You'll have to call me because I don't know BAP. So why don't you shoot me an email and we'll have a conversation about it because I don't know who that is. So I can't really say. Let me tell you primarily how ReposiTrak is different than other systems who may advertise themselves as traceability system. A lot of companies that are in the space for traceability are food safety platforms. We're not a food safety platform. Now, some of you, if you're in FSQA and you've used ReposiTrak for a long time and you know that we were the platform that the SF2I audits were done on for 9 years, you may think of us as a food safety platform. We're not. We're a supply chain data management platform, and traceability is a supply chain data management activity. So if you start from a system that is designed to do food safety inside the four walls of a facility, that's not really an ideal system for what traceability is, because traceability is about the data handoffs, right? It's all about the data handoffs and then a repository to have all the records. Some suppliers, certainly large, we've done the calculation, and one large wholesaler that we work with will have probably 50 million traceability records a year, 50 million, right? Where do you put them? Food safety system, that's a good place to put them, right? So number one, we're a supply chain data management system built for storing the data and retrieving the data. So that's number one. Number two is we have a team that does the follow-up. So if you're interacting with us today, you know that. We've got a US-based team that does outbound calls and helps people and holds hands. That's not an internal support team, it's outbound. We're calling you to say, we see you have a problem, let us help you. That makes us different. The final thing is, and this is more important for your customers than it is for you, unless you're thinking about using us upstream with your suppliers. I mentioned it earlier, but I just glossed over it. The ReposiTrak system is built to find errors in the data files because the other part of our business counts on this. It's predicated on it. We've been doing it for 20 years. Part of our business is tracking products into stores for financial reasons, and suppliers count on it to get paid. So it has to be really accurate. So if the data files that come from the suppliers are wrong, it has a ripple effect through the whole system and it really messes things up. So the system has been developed over 20 years to look for things like data errors. So when you send us your file, if you omit anything, we'll know that the system will recognize automatically, not a human looking at it. The system will recognize it and it'll push you an email and it'll post something in your account to say you had a data error. Fix it and upload your record again. So maintaining the data integrity of traceability will happen in ReposiTrak in a way that's far superior to anything else because the other systems aren't built to do that, and they won't be anytime soon. We've spent hundreds of millions of dollars and it's taken us 2 decades to build this thing to do precisely what it's designed to do for traceability, which is accurately track data, store data, and make it easy to retrieve data. That's the biggest difference. I'm happy to talk to you about anybody else, but start there.
Next question is more about the WinCo. How do we know if we are one of the WinCo suppliers that are required to be a part of the traceability network?
Log into if you probably already have a ReposiTrak account for at least one customer that you're sharing documents. We call that compliance management. Log in and click on the traceability link and see if you have an invitation, right? Or if you just go to that first page where you log in, it's called the Compliance Center. Log in and go there. It's where you would see if you owe customers documents, and you'll see when, if you are required by WinCo, you'll see it there. It'll say traceability enrollment, and that's how you would start. If that doesn't work, like if you don't have a ReposiTrak account today, send me an email and I'll confirm. But that's how you would know. And you may not be the person who uses ReposiTrak today. You probably are, because that's probably why you got the email about the webinar. But if you're not, right, maybe there's somebody else that got the notification, but you should be able to see that in the system that there's an invitation for you from a customer to do either compliance management or traceability or both. Those show up on that first page of the Compliance Center. But don't get stuck. You can always ask for help. Enrollment at ReposiTrak.com, right? Or my email works. That's my mobile phone number. You can call me anytime. I live in Florida. Don't call me like California time at 10 o'clock. I'll be asleep, but any other time.
Right, next question here. Can other food safety related documents be uploaded via ReposiTrak like Food Logic Portal?
Yeah, I mean, that's our compliance management solution, right? So that's documents, right? It's not shipment related data, it's audits, food safety, certificates of insurance, agreements, that sort of thing. That's why we have 30,000 suppliers connected to the platform today, because they're required to use the system for that solution, compliance management. And now many of them obviously are getting pulled in for traceability as well. So yeah, we do more document sharing than any other platform. So if you want to learn more about that, let me know.
All right, it looks like that's all the questions that we have at this time.
Good, great. Well, 82 people. Thank you, 82 hardcore people, for hanging in there. I hope it was worth your time. Thanks again. We've got more webinars coming up in January. We don't have any more for this year. Happy holidays to everybody. Thanks again for joining. We really appreciate it. Look for an email from us within the next 24 hours or so with a bunch of resources, including the recording. Reach out to me if you need help with anything. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.